Welcome, everyone, to Fantasy Foresight, the podcast. We're your hosts and co-founders of FantasyForesight.com. I'm Ben.
And I'm Jay.
You ready to get rolling, Jay?
You know it. Let's do this.
All right, let's go. Today, we've got the wide receivers in the AFC North as of Thursday, August 23rd. First up, we've got the Baltimore Ravens and their newly acquired wide receiver one, Michael Crabtree.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one where you and I disagree a little bit. You might be high on Michael Crabtree. I'm not so sure I'm sold. He is total Foresight's WR18. He has the 17th ranked offensive line, which really doesn't matter to wide receivers so much, but he has the 28th ranked schedule for wide receivers. So he's got a pretty tough schedule he's going up against. The last 3 years in Oakland, he has outperformed his counterpart. He's averaging 11 yards per reception, 8.5 targets per game. You love to see that with 5 receptions.
Especially with the pass volume that Joe Flacco realizes on that team every year.
Yeah, and 55 yards a game with about half a touchdown per game. So his touchdown average is actually pretty solid from what we've seen across the board. Yeah. And he's now the number one option in Baltimore.
Yeah, and I mean, he's going to face tougher coverage than he's used to seeing because he is the guy. And then you add to that he has a tough strength of schedule. So I get the concerns. I do. But everything comes back to value. He's going 65 to 69 in PPR drafts over the last 30 days. Going ahead of him, you've got injured Alshon Jeffrey, coming off of injury and suspended Julian Edelman. Going behind him, you've got coming off of injury Will Fuller and our guy Emmanuel Sanders. Of that group, I'm taking Manny Sanders and I'm thrilled about it. If Alshon was healthy, he is a definite second. Edelman in years past, sure. This year, not so much. Will Fuller, I don't want anything to do with until that guy shows me a little bit of consistency. My point is, Michael Crabtree's volume and his target share, I do think present some wide receiver 2 value. And at that point in your draft, to be taking a wide receiver 2 in fantasy terms, I think it's pretty solid. So is he a guy that I'm running up to take excitedly? No. Is he a guy that I'm targeting in my draft? No. But if I'm in the 70s and it's my turn and I want to take a wide receiver, man, if Manny Sanders isn't available in the group that we just went over, I've got to take Michael Crabtree. Do you disagree with that?
No, I think you're right. I mean, in that value as a WR1 on a team, yeah, I mean, that's a great spot to take somebody because you know he's going to get the volume and that's what you need to score points. So no, I mean, I think that's an appropriate price for him. And I agree with you. If you can actually get him later than that, then I think he presents some nice value for you as a WR1 in Baltimore.
Right, and they brought in a couple other new wide receivers on that team this year. Next up is Willie Snead.
I don't know what to make of Willie Snead.
Either.
You kept waiting for you saw flashes of him in New Orleans, and you would get excited, and then he would go away for 4 games, and you would never see him again.
Yeah,
he had some nagging injury issues. He's going undrafted currently. Total Foresight has him ranked way low at WR81. We don't have enough of a consistent sample size from him to know what he's capable of doing in a week in and week out basis. So I just don't think he's a player you can trust rostering on your fantasy team.
And I can't argue with that. I also can't argue with him being free. And I think we've both kind of discussed and agreed that you're not maximizing the value of your dart throw at the wide receiver position late in your draft, but sometimes based on the nature of your draft, the last player that you're going to take happens to be a wide receiver. And if you want to throw a dart at the wide receiver position, Willie Snead or John Brown's not a bad dart throw because there are a lot of targets to go around on that team, and somebody is going to catch a lot of passes. And for absolutely free, you could do worse than Willie Snead. He's not going to be my top 5 dart throw targets whatsoever.
No, but you're right.
He's not bad, not a bad one.
And so far in his career, he's got a healthy 13 yard per reception average, which is great, but his volume just hasn't been there. And maybe in Baltimore, he'll get some more opportunities, but I'm just going to have to wait and see how that goes because at this point, I don't know. So I'm going to have to trust the numbers and Total Foresight. He's going WR81, so that's just a wait and see for me. Now, you mentioned John Brown, and I'm going to bring up a point that kind of makes me look to him in the situation you mentioned where you're throwing darts late at maybe some players with some high upside.
Right.
Matt Harmon of Yahoo, who I personally like a lot, had an article out today where he listed 10 players that are behind a WR1 on their team, but he thinks could outscore them this fantasy season. And John Brown is one of them. He's one of the guys who he thinks could score more than the top receiver going in drafts on that team, and that's Michael Crabtree. And that's, listen, I look at this list and I agree with the other 9 out of 10. I'm going to be honest. So now I look at Baltimore and say, wait a minute. I know John Brown has been exciting previously. He's never been somebody I've personally had a lot of shares of. But if I'm looking at this list and I agree wholeheartedly with the other 90%, then maybe this is a situation where John Brown presents a lot of value going 140 to 145 in drafts.
You're absolutely right. And Coach Harbaugh has gone out of his way to sing his praises this offseason, saying that he's been better than we expected. He was quoted as saying, obviously we had high hopes for him, but he's been better than advertised, probably even better than what the tape showed, I would say. He's been a complete receiver for us. That's the end of the quote from Coach Harbaugh. But again, just for a coach to go out of his way to say something like that about his player, he has to be impressing him in every facet of what coaches expect out of their players. Otherwise, he's not going to get that shout out. Then you couple that with the fact that he's on that list for Matt Harmon, a guy that we respect. And you couple that with the fact that he had a really nice grab in the back of the end zone, that he has that 14.5 yards per reception in his career. I mean, you want to talk about efficiency and big play capability. 14.5 yards of reception is huge. And then you talk about, well, what's the big concern? A lack of volume.
Right.
The volume, the path for more volume is there. And if he can sustain that yards per reception average, he could really, really be fantasy relevant, especially going in that 140 to 45 range.
Yeah, and I think this is where you're going. The part that hurts him is there's a lot of valuable wide receivers in that range. You have Anthony Miller, the exciting rookie in Chicago. You have Geronimo Allison, who we think is going to see some more targets in Green Bay. You have Tyler Lockett, that we talked a lot about on the previous podcast. We think he's a breakout possibility this season. And you've got Kenny Golladay going right behind him. And those are all wonderful players presenting great value at this stage in the draft. So, he fits in there. I'm probably taking some of those other guys in front of him, but if you're in this situation, you're looking for a wide receiver late with some upside potential, those other guys are gone, then yeah, fine, grab John Brown. I think he could end up paying off for you.
Yeah, and when you're approaching your draft, it needs to be in a tier format. So what you're doing is you're looking at ADPs and seeing where people are going. And in your different tiers, you're highlighting the guys that you want to target in those tiers. John Brown's a guy in 140 and beyond that you can highlight. If you're in a league with a bunch of savvy players and the likes of Anthony Miller and Geronimo Allison, Tyler Lockett, Kenny Golladay are all gone, then John Brown is just a fine option for you to go with at that point in your draft, because he's essentially free.
Right.
And like we've been saying, somebody on this team is going to catch a lot more passes this year, and John Brown could definitely be one of them. Now, somebody on this team who I do not think is going to be a person catching passes is a complete draft bust, Rashad Perryman. Can't stay healthy, looks like he might get cut. I think he's one of those guys where I've never understood the hype and discussion, and I think we probably said as much as we need to say about him.
Yep, let's move on. And we're going to move on to a team where there is no question about who the number one receiver is in the Cincinnati Bengals, and it's AJ Green, because Tyler Boyd and John Ross are not going to challenge him for the number one duties on that offense. Tyler Boyd has been a fine receiver in his first 2 years. John Ross can't stay healthy yet. It looks like he could actually be healthy this year, but we are waiting for him to do something. Last year was pretty much a wash. When he finally got back on the field, he didn't do much, but they used a first round pick on this guy. He's going to get an opportunity, but for me, he had injury concerns in college. He's shown that those injury concerns have carried over to the pro level. I don't think he's going to be anything. Now, if you want to touch on those guys, that's fine.
No.
Tyler Boyd and John Ross are just not guys that I'm looking at in the draft. We talked about some value. We've talked about it all over the place. Yep. These two guys, they're just not enough value for me. Yeah,
there's plenty of value elsewhere. I mean, everything's a wait and see. We could, within 3 weeks of the regular season, be like, oh, Boyd or Ross is definitely fantasy relevant now, But right now, no way.
No.
You've not seen anything to give you any kind of indication that you need to be going in that direction at any point in your draft.
We'll see on the waiver wire.
Exactly. So let's talk about AJ Green a little bit more for a second. We know the Vegas outlook, 5 games. We know the poor offensive line doesn't impact him that much. He does have the 26th ranked strength of schedule for wide receivers. That is a little bit eye-opening, but when you consider the fact that over his career, he's finished as last year PPR wide receiver 10. Granted, in 10 games in the prior season, he finished as wide receiver 34. But before that, finished as wide receiver 8, wide receiver 24 in 13 games, wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3, and wide receiver 17. He just turned 30, and Dalton...
I'll be honest, I am shocked that he is 30 years old. I mean, I guess that he's been around forever, but I am so surprised that he is that old.
Right. I mean, the guys going around him, where he's being drafted at 19 to 21, going right ahead of him, you've got Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Michael Thomas. Going right behind him, you got Mike Evans, T.Y. Hilton, and Stephon Diggs. Now, I'm
gonna paint a picture for the audience.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ben and I, we have an opinion about AJ Green, and he just listed off his finishes, and there were several seasons where he had fewer than 16 games. Now, is his injury impact as great as maybe it's made out to be by us and others? No, I mean, for the most part, he's on the field, but I mean, that is a concern. He listed these rankings where he's WR10, WR34, WR24, WR4, 3, and 17. I mean, it's all over the place. And from my perspective, he's just difficult to trust on which side of that I'm going to get. When he's on the field, he's dynamic and he's one of the best there is. But I am concerned that he's just not going to be on the field when it matters for me. So we just talked about it in a previous episode. We have to take emotion out of this.
Yep.
Total Foresight has him as WR10. I think that's probably perfectly appropriate for him.
Yeah, it is, because he has proven when he can stay healthy that he's a top flight wide receiver. And, if you just look at him when he is on the field, he should be ranked higher than wide receiver 10 because he has those outlier seasons. That's why it pushes him down a little bit.
But to the guys you listed just now, I'm probably going with the 3 guys in front of him.
There's no probably about it. I'm running to get Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, or Michael Thomas above AJ Green, and I'm thrilled about it.
Right. Now, going behind him with Mike Evans, T.Y. Hilton, and Stephon Diggs, I mean, Evans is I've always liked Evans. I would probably take him over AJ Green. T.Y. Hilton, I really want to know what luck is going to be before I invest that highly in him.
Yep.
And Stephon Diggs, he's got a little bit of an injury concern himself.
He's ouchy. Yeah, I love Stephon Diggs, but he's a little ouchy.
So I may slot AJ Green right in between those groups. I think he might be appropriately valued there.
Couldn't agree more. I think with his consistency, aside from his injuries a couple times in his career, he is worthy to go ahead of inconsistent Mike Evans. He's worthy to go ahead of T.Y. Hilton when we don't have a clear picture about Andrew Luck yet. And he's definitely good to go ahead of Stephon Diggs, who we're not sure how much this guy can put it together for a whole season as far as being able to stay on the field. I love him. He's a dynamic guy, but I just need to see that durability.
Yep. Now, a more interesting wide receiver situation is in Cleveland, where they bring in, finally, some wide receiver help in Jarvis Landry.
My guy. Bless him.
Yes. They look to be getting Josh Gordon back, Flash Gordon, we hope, in the next couple weeks, anytime maybe.
Yeah.
And then they draft Antonio Callaway, and he looks to be possibly dynamic. It was a controversial pick in the draft because of his off-the-field issues. Mm-hmm. And they have Rashard Higgins, who can be a nice little accompanying piece there. So,
and a lot of people don't know that name, and they shouldn't. But I'll tell you, around town in Cleveland, he has been one of the highlights of camp. He has been one of the most improved guys. He was starting opposite Jarvis Landry tonight in Josh Gordon's absence and over Antonio Callaway. So, I mean, they are expecting to be able to count on him when he is called upon. Now, will he be a fantasy relevant wide receiver? I really don't think so. Antonio Callaway, He's a rookie. He's got a lot of maturity issues and a lot of off the field concerns. He is an extremely dynamic player on the field. And in his first preseason game where they punished him by making him run literally every snap of that game, he really proved a lot to his team and his coaching staff when he was able to still power through and get a score at the end of that game when he was exhausted. So, with that being said, I still don't think that he's anything more than an absolute late round dart throw. And the two receivers of real note on this team are Jarvis Landry and Josh Gordon. So let's dive into my guy, Jarvis Landry first. Yeah. Our guy. He is,
thank you.
He is somebody that me and Jay have both really been high on ever since he's entered the NFL. In his 4-year career, he has never missed a game. He is a beast. He has averaged 6 receptions a game, 63 yards a game, 5.5 touchdowns a season, 10 yards a reception. What a lot of people don't know about him, and it drives me nuts when people just call him, oh, he's just a slot receiver. Oh, he's just this, just that. No wide receiver in NFL history has had more receptions through their first 4 seasons than Jarvis Juice Landry. I could not believe that the Browns got him signed. And though many expect his volume to decrease, I'm not sure it's going to be that much, because when you look at him and the receivers that we've had, he just jumps off the screen as being insanely talented. 2, he's already developed an outstanding chemistry with Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor loves to throw those short to intermediate routes. Jarvis Landry's route running is just unbelievable. He's already a bulldog of a worker, but now that he's on a team that he really feels loves and appreciates him, that values his leadership, that values his commitment and his heart, they have financially committed to him, and he's welcomed in that locker room as one of its captains. I see a bright future for Landry. He continues to be underrated, and he continues to be a quintessential Cleveland Browns type of guy. He's the ultimate underdog beast, and I love Jarvis Landry this year, and so does Total Foresight as our wide receiver 7.
I mean, how can you not? He has been a fantasy stud, and I'm with you. It pains me when I see people label him as a slot receiver because they clearly have not watched this guy play. Right. Prior to last season, when they had quarterback issues in Miami, when he was cutting his teeth in this league as an unheralded player, he was on the outside making plays along the sideline, not in the slot catching dump downs. He's not Wes Welker. He's not Julian Edelman. I'm sorry, he's not. You need to watch the guy play. He's so much more than that. And the great part is he can excel in that position when he's asked to do it, but he can also run on the outside and stretch defenses and make plays. So whatever Cleveland is going to do, and they've talked about putting him on the outside and using him in that original role that he cut his teeth on in this league, but if he's called on to move into the inside, he has shown he can be the most productive fantasy receiver.
Absolutely. We like the real life person, Jarvis Landry. We like the real life NFL player, Jarvis Landry. And we like the fantasy football player, Jarvis Landry. He is one of our guys. He's one of Total Foresight's guys. And he is somebody that does not get the respect that he deserves. And he's currently going 35 to 40 in drafts. People going ahead of him, Amari Cooper, Larry Fitzgerald, Doug Baldwin. Doug Baldwin without the injury concerns all day. Larry Fitzgerald and Amari Cooper this year, I could make an argument either way.
Come on, can you really trust, going into this season, people might be high on Amari, but can you really trust him at this point in the same manner that you can trust Jarvis Landry? I know Jarvis is on a different team. He's on the Cleveland Browns, and that's probably playing against him in people's minds. But as a trust issue of actually catching the ball and scoring fantasy points, can you trust Amari Cooper as much as Jarvis Landry? And I don't think you can. Now,
I think the answer from me is I absolutely trust Jarvis Landry more than Amari Cooper. And before I let you go on, I'll say that I think people are being very short-sighted and having that recency bias that I talk about where they're saying, oh, but he's going to the Cleveland Browns. Well, the Cleveland Browns before weren't Tyrod Taylor, Baker Mayfield, and Todd Haley. They are now. And I think that's a plus, not a minus.
And you need, again, we keep harping on this, you need to take emotion out of it. You need to recognize that teams change from season to season.
Yep.
And if you really want to make strides with your fantasy team and have a shot at bringing home the trophy at the end of the season, you need to have the foresight to be able to see which teams it is that are going to make the turnaround and where that value lies. And for us, Jarvis Landry is at the top of that list.
Absolutely. Locked and loaded, wide receiver 1. I think he's a great value where he's going.
Absolutely.
The guys going behind him, Chris Hogan, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Demarius Thomas.
All great.
All solid, exactly. But when you talk about trust, and the combination of trust, floor, and upside doesn't get any better than Jarvis Landry. He's our guy. We love Jarvis. And you're more than welcome on this pod anytime ever, brother.
Absolutely. Now, somebody we're not sure we can trust quite that much is Josh Gordon. Will he be on this football field this season? Right now, he's obviously been full of off-the-field issues. It's been one reason or another. There's a lot of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. When he's been on the field, actually, when he was on the field last season, he was pretty decent.
The only question about this guy has ever been with the off-the-field stuff.
Right.
I will tell you, listening to local radio every single day, all reports this offseason from Cleveland have been extremely positive, unlike ever before.
Okay,
there's no slip-ups, there's no failed or missed drug tests, nothing.
Right, but he has still missed camp.
Yep.
Now, that's a completely separate, it seems, off-the-field issue that he's dealing with, but he needs to get in, he needs to play games, and we need to know he's going 45 to 50 in drafts. Right now,
yep.
It looks like we have him unlisted in Total Foresight. We probably need to get him in there.
It's not that he's unlisted, it's that he's unranked because his sample size is so skewed. That he doesn't register a score high enough for ranking.
Right. So, going 45 to 50, you're still taking the Golden Tates, the Chris Hogans, the Demarius Thomases of the world, and actually Brandon Cooks, Allen Robinson, those guys are going around him, and I know those guys are going to be on the field.
You do, but I will say this. I personally, at that point in the draft, would like Golden Tate, Demarius Thomas, and Brandon Cooks all for sure more than I would like Josh Gordon. But I will also simultaneously acknowledge that of the 6 guys going in front of and behind, not one of them has the ceiling that Josh Gordon has.
No, you're right. I agree with that. I just,
And it's a risk. It's a big-time risk. Yeah, but that's also true, too, that none of them have that ceiling either.
We always talk about it. You need to. It's draft dependent how your draft is going. If you can afford to take a risk on a high ceiling player like that, then sure, Josh Gordon could be the guy who puts you over the top in your league.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point.
But if you're still drafting starters and guys you need to rely on, I have to go in another direction at that point. Now, if he falls and that value starts to creep up and increase, and he starts to go a round or two later, then sure, then the value is extreme with his upside, and then you take a chance. So
I'll say this. Of everything I've heard about Josh Gordon, the person, it sounds like this guy's really turned a corner. I'm really rooting for him as a human being, that this change is real and it's a significant step for him in his life. And I just know that anything that he could ever be presented with in his personal life will be much more manageable if he is able to leverage this talent into long-term NFL success. And I just hope for the best for this guy outside of the fact that he's a Brown. But man, if he can ever put it all together, the guy averages 17 yards of reception. I mean, he's an absolute prototypical beast at the position.
And I'm with you. I hope he can turn it around too.
Yep.
Now, another guy that's an absolute beast is on your favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Antonio Brown has not finished worse than WR4 in fantasy football. Total Foresight has him ranked as WR1 this year, and who can argue with that? Now, the interesting thing, since you just mentioned it, and I have to point out that Josh Gordon's career average of 17.3 yards outpaces Antonio Brown's, whose is 13.5 yards. Now, sample sizes are much different.
Sure.
But just an interesting little nugget there.
Well, and I want to say I worded my notes on AB poorly. He actually has finished PPR wide receiver 1 for 4 straight years. And the year before that, he was wide receiver 3.
Okay.
This offseason, he has made an entire documentary about how he's been spending his time with his insane workout workout regimen, his strategic diet plan, and his sheer hunger to keep himself in the kind of shape needed to continue his dominance as the best in the game at his position for what would be 5 consecutive seasons. That's insane.
It is. I mean, look, what can you say about him? He's going 4 to 6 overall. That's totally fine. He's the number 1 wide receiver. He was a little banged up at the end of last season, killed me in one league, but he is the man at the position. You take him and you're happy. At 4 to 6, there's a premium on running backs. They're going to go first. He's going to be the first wide receiver off the board right in that range. I think that's appropriate. There's no argument there. So I'm not sure how much we need to talk about it.
We don't. He's locked and loaded, and you can feel very, very confident in putting him as your wide receiver 1. Absolutely.
Now, the other guys on the team are also interesting. You have Juju Smith-Schuster and the rookie James Washington, who is really starting to make a name for himself.
And this is one of those weird situations where in real life, as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you're thrilled that you have the riches at this position that you do with Juju Smith-Schuster and James Washington. However, in fantasy land, you kind of not sure how you feel about this because they could maybe cancel each other out a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, look, they're both home run hitters, it seems like. So if they're able to get that home run in a game, they're going to make you look great. But there are also going to be games where, like Ben said, they could end up canceling themselves and it's a quiet game. They're not going to score a touchdown in every single game they play in.
Right. And there's a lot of volume to go around. And Juju Smith-Schuster is Total Foresight's wide receiver 33. Last year, he essentially played half the season. But despite that fact, he still managed to average 4 receptions per game over the course of the whole season, 65 yards a game over the course of the whole season, along with 7 touchdowns in 15.8 yards per reception.
That's impressive.
I mean, it's pretty insane. So the emergence of James Washington and some of the soft tissue injuries that Juju had last year are the only roadblocks that he has in his way. Otherwise, his upside is real, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was a high-end wide receiver 2 by the end of this season. He's going 40 to 42. There are some receivers in that grouping that I definitely like more than him because of sample size and situation and things of that nature. But, if you get more towards the 50s and you need a receiver and guys like Landry, Amari Cooper, Fitzgerald, Demarius, Golden Tate, they're all gone, then I start to become a lot more okay with you taking a look at Juju.
Yeah, completely agree. And, they rid themselves of the locker room problem in Martavis Bryant, and they replace him with the rookie. So you would think that Juju now is the clear number 2 on this team. There's no questioning it. There's no issues in that locker room, in the receiver room. So they can really come out and start to put on a show. And I'm with you. I think he's 1,000-yard possible receiver this year. He's going to present some value. But I'm with you. I would love to wait more in the 50 range. He's a fine pick where he's going. I'm sure he's going to put up points for you. I would just look for maybe a little bit more value there. They've got a tough strength of schedule. We didn't even mention that with Antonio Brown because it doesn't
matter. Yeah.
No. But with Juju, I think he's maybe just going a touch too high for us, whereas James Washington, he's going at the very end of the draft. He's the 4th to last wide receiver. He's going 160 to 165. Again, one of those late draft values that could end up paying off for you.
Well, and shout out to our guy, Steve Lizette, the fantasy football dad. He just wrote a great piece, including James Washington in there, about wide receivers that are going for free, essentially, that can make a big impact on your team. James Washington is a guy I'm really excited about. He has been a beast in the preseason already. 7 receptions, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns, 22.5 yards per reception. Now, at 4 years at Oklahoma State, this man averaged 4.3 receptions a game, 86 receiving yards per game, 10 touchdowns per season, and 19.8 yards per reception. The sample size is huge, and the production is outstanding.
Yeah. Yeah, he's exciting. He's an exciting player.
And now he is a guy that ranks atop of my list of late round wide receiver dart throws.
You know, it's funny because after the draft this past April or whenever it was, kind of came out that the wide receiver collection this year wasn't the best, wasn't the most talented, that the focus was at other positions. But as we go through this and you start to see these guys get slotted into different teams and they're getting their opportunities, there really are a lot of exciting rookie wide receivers this year, and it's maybe just not the names we expected.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Do you want to go into tight ends?
Oh, so, all right. So that wraps up the wide receivers in the AFC North, and now let's go ahead and just tack on the tight ends while we're at it.
Yeah, I mean, now we've discussed some really intriguing groups so far with the running back position and the wide receivers. The tight ends, once again, they leave a little bit to be desired. Now,
which
Baltimore,
is why they're no longer their own episode.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Yes. So in Baltimore, we've got a collection of tight ends.
Yeah.
We have Nick Boyle, Max Williams, Hayden Hurst, and Mark Andrews. 3 out of the 4 are going undrafted. There has been some made that Baltimore likes to use the tight ends. And, the problem is we just don't know who it is that we can trust to be a reliable fantasy value this year. Right. Mark Andrews, there was some talk about him, but he's got soft tissue injuries. He's been quiet so far in the preseason. Max Williams has been fine, but really, he hasn't been a fantasy value.
If Baltimore finds a tight end that they can rely on, the volume will be there for whoever emerges as the tight end in this offense.
Then you go to Cincinnati, where they have Tyler Eifert. I don't know how you trust him. If you don't know his injury, he doesn't play. He's always hurt.
41 games over the past 5 seasons, to be exact.
Yeah, so enough said. You can't trust the guy. He's talented. He's been good, but it's been so long, I don't know if he still is.
But honestly, when I dug into the stats, I always had a higher impression of him than he actually is. I mean, even in his heyday, he averaged 3 catches, 3 catches a game, 39 yards a game, and he had 20 touchdowns in 39 games. That's one every other game. That's hardly some world beater at the position.
No, but that's probably where it comes from. When you're averaging a little over half a touchdown per game, that's where he made his name. He had 20 scores. Now, then you have Tyler Kroft, who was PPR's tight end 15 last season. He's been quiet so far in the preseason. So again, and he's going undrafted. Tyler Eifert is actually going drafted, which is a little shocking to me that people are taking a shot. But it's late. It's 140 to 145.
Here's the one thing we didn't talk about with him, though. I know we've discussed his injury history. He started camp on the PUP list again with his back. He hasn't played in the preseason. So I'm not looking on this team for my tight end at all, period. Even if I'm in a 2 tight end league. No way.
Yeah, sorry, Bengals fans. We're just not going there. Cleveland's a little bit different because they have David Njoku, who is a physical freak, and I think he's somebody who people are a little bit more excited on, and that's indicated by his draft position because he's going 100 to 105.
What's crazy is that he has been talked about as somebody who cannot catch the ball in camp, and then he has just come out and looked amazing in the preseason so far.
All right, so far in the preseason, of the games I have seen in the red zone, he is almost an unstoppable force.
Oh yeah,
because who's guarding that guy? Look. He doesn't have Gronk's production, but he's in that similar mold where who's going to guard that guy?
Yeah.
A linebacker can't keep up with him. A DB can't match his size. So I can see him getting some serious red zone volume. And I don't know if he's going to have the number of receptions and the yardage volume that you would like to see out of a TE1, but he's certainly going to see the targets in the red zone to make him on that borderline.
Oh, yeah. I mean, double-digit touchdowns are not out of his range of outcomes this season whatsoever, and I look for Todd Haley to maximize his potential, for sure.
And look, Total Foresight has him as tight end 31. Just for good measure, Total Foresight has Tyler Eifert at tight end 49.
Yeah.
So just compare those two. Now, That still puts him in the tight end 3 range, which you're not rostering. But I think that's strictly based on sample size, and I think Ben and I both agree that there's a little bit more volume there. The guys going in front of him, Jordan Reed is ouchie. Trey Burton presents some interesting upside. He's in that similar mold where those two guys could be some great value picks in the tight end position. And the guys going behind him, Jack Doyle and George Kittle, fine players, but I think both Njoku and Trey Burton present more value.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, until we know exactly what Andrew Luck is and until we know how much Eric Ebron's going to eat into Jack Doyle, I don't think that you can trust the upside any more than you can with Njoku or Trey Burton in that group.
No, and I like Seth DeValve on the Browns. He's a great player, a nice little piece, but he's just not going to get the volume to make him relevant.
Yeah, and not in fantasy. Yeah.
No, and similarly in Pittsburgh, you have Vance McDonald and Jesse James. Again, two players I like, but we just talked about the receiving core they have there, plus Le'Veon Bell. There are too many other dynamic weapons that are going to make these guys be completely irrelevant. Yeah, sure, they'll score a touchdown or a couple this season, but they're not going to have anywhere near the volume to be fantasy relevant.
These guys together as one tight end this year could be fantasy relevant. But separately, they're going to cancel each other out, any production or value that either would have. And I think they both have an opportunity to present a lot more real life value than they do fantasy value to their teams. But here's what I'll say. I have very little tolerance for injured players. Vance McDonald's already got an injured foot. Tomlin doesn't know when he'll even be close to playing. So to me, that's just kind of like, until further notice, he doesn't really exist. Jesse James was PPR tight end 22 last year. That's not really relevant. He'll be the guy at that position until further notice. He's going undrafted. But again, there's so many other options at tight end that I would rather have than him.
I will see them on the waiver wire.
Yep, exactly.
And we'll see you in our next episode.
Yeah, when we go over the exciting NFC North. Can't wait.
There we go. And that wraps up this episode of Fantasy Foresight, the podcast. Don't forget, you can find us at fantasyforesight.com.
And you can use the links at the bottom of the page to find us on social media. Follow us on Twitter at ForesightBen, at ForesightJ, and at Total Foresight. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
You already found this podcast, but you can find it on Google Play and iTunes, and you can find our app in the App Store.
All right, that does it for us. We'll see everybody next time. Thanks a lot, and have a great night.